In order to download Positron, you just need to go to the Posit website, which is at posit.co. Posit is the company which used to be called RStudio, and they are the ones that produce Positron. So as you can see here at the site, you can either click here or go to this free and open source menu and click on Positron. That will take you to the Positron information page, where you can find out more about it, explore the various features and so on. To download it, obviously just click Download Positron. And here you can, and you get to the download page where you can download the installer package for your particular operating system. You've got Windows 10 and 11, Mac, and Linux. So choose the one for your system. If you're on Windows 10 or 11, you can choose this one to install for all users, or this for just you yourself. On Mac, you could choose Universal, which will work on either Intel Macs or newer Apple Silicon Macs, or probably better choose the one specific to your particular Mac. This one, obviously, if you're on an M series Mac. This one, if you're still on an Intel one. And those people who run Linux can choose one of these. So in order to download it, you do have to click this here to agree to the license agreement. And then you'll be able to click the one that you want. That will download. If you want to check the integrity of the download before you run it, but there really shouldn't be any problems, you can check the checksum here. If you know how to do that, but it's not really necessary. So download the install package, run it, and Positron will be set up and ready to go. One other thing before we start looking at it, you'll notice there's a table of contents here, which in fact gives you access to the online manual guide for Positron. So if you did want to look at some written documentation about it, then as you can see on the download page, you can simply click on these various links here. If you want to know a bit more about what's called the command palette, I'll briefly mention that, but there's a lot more to it. You could click on this, for example. That will tell you about it. So it's a nice little online guide, but my video will show you the basics of how to get started, and you'll be able to that will take you most of the way that you need to use Positron, perhaps probably all the way for most people. So when you first run Positron, you'll see an interface pretty much like this. It is very similar in appearance to RStudio. So if you're used to using RStudio, you'll find it very similar. There are some differences, which I'll point out. Now, Positron is actually built on I believe on the code base of a very popular programming IDE called Visual Studio Code, which a lot of people use. So again, if you're familiar with using that, again, that will mean you'll have very little difficulty with Positron. So let me explain first the basic layout. Obviously, we have here the menu at the top here, the menu bar. Of course, here on the Mac, that's detached from the window. On Windows, of course, it'll be part of the main window, but it'll be just the same. You have here a little taskbar where you have you can create new documents or open a document or save. Start session, you don't need that, as we'll see, because that will happen once you actually start doing some analysis. Down the side here, we have this little sidebar, which has various icons. Clicking on them opens I think it's called the primary or the secondary sidebar, such as, for example, here, clicking the Explorer icon will show the actual folder that you're working in, the documents and so on. At the moment, of course, we haven't created one, so there's nothing to show. When you do projects in Positron, each project is kept in its own separate folder on your hard disk. So all the files, the code files, the data files are kept in its own folder for neatness. And the first thing you need to do to start a project is to create that folder, as we'll see in a moment. This one will search through your files. There are various others which have more specialist functions. The only other one that I think is worth pointing out here is this one here, which is extensions. Now, extensions are the way that Positron is able to add additional functionality. Now, most of the ones that you need for basic analysis in R or Python are there by default. They're installed as part of the Positron installation. So, for example, here you've got the Jupyter packages that you need for doing analysis with the Jupyter Notebooks in Python. I'll show that in my accompanying Python video using Positron. In order to do R, you obviously need to have an installation of R on your computer, which obviously if you've been using RStudio, you'll have. As regards the various R packages, well, Positron will simply use those which you've already installed via RStudio. And in fact, I find it's much easier to use RStudio to install the packages I need rather than Positron, because in RStudio you have a menu option to do that. You don't have one here in Positron, at least I haven't been able to find one. I don't think there is. You can, of course, use the standard R command install.packages to install packages. You can run that in the console, as we'll see in a moment. But I prefer to install the package I need using RStudio, which I still use, and then they're already available then in Positron. But it's up to you. Again, some of these others are a specialist here. This one is for if you're going to use GitHub so you're going to create a Git repository and then upload that to GitHub and so on. If you know all about GitHub and how that works, then you can do that. I'm not going to go through that here. This one, in fact, is how you sign into GitHub. That's why it's got a little symbol on it here, because I'm not actually signed in. The only other one, again, which I think is worth noting, is this gear icon here, standard settings icon. Click that. You can go to settings. You can actually go to extensions from here. But the other thing you might want to do is to check for updates on this here. But updates are added automatically anyway, and once an update is available, you'll get a little notification on this icon to tell you to update. So clicking that again here will remove it. So as you can see, it toggles between exposing and hiding. So the actual interface, main interface here is very similar to RStudio, and it's a set of panels. Here, this main panel here is where you will enter your code, and you can have several code windows open, code panels. Each one will have a tab here. This one is simply some welcome information, which you'll only see when you first open Positron. From then on, you will see, when you open Positron, it will go by default to the project you're currently working on, and you can then create a new project in a new window and so on. Once you've created a number of projects, they will appear down here, the recent ones. Now, if you are just using Positron for the first time, of course, haven't created any folders, any projects, this area will be blank. But once you start doing that, this will fill up, so it gives you a quick way to get back to them. There's a bit of information here you can go through if you are migrating from RStudio or from VS Code here if you're using Python. Now, the console is not visible at the moment. It will be visible. The console, of course, is where your output appears, the text output. You can actually bring that up if you just go to the View menu, go to Appearance, and click Panel, then here we have the console, or you can go to the terminal, and so on. Again, this is very similar to RStudio. Console is really the only one you need. As it said, there's no session running. In other words, we've not got any version of R running at the moment because we haven't started a project. This will appear automatically once you do set up a project, so I'll close that just for the time being. Now, on the left, we have this pane here where you will see the various objects, various variables that you create. Again, similar to RStudio, where it was called environment. And here, as you can see, is where you'll see your charts, your plots. Now, in RStudio, you could rearrange the order of these various panels. I'm not quite sure you can do that in Positron. Maybe you can. I haven't bothered, but you can rearrange the panels possibly if you want. Obviously, you can resize them in the normal way, like this, horizontally and vertically. So you can get the interface the way you like it. And finally, down here, there's a status bar. So how do you start a particular project? Well, you need to just create a new folder. Now, you can either, the various ways you can do it, if you've got this welcome screen, you can click on this, and it brings you to this new folder from template dialog. Or if this panel is not there because you're already in a current project, simply go to the File menu and click New Folder from Template. And here you can see is where you can start a particular project. If it's going to be R, click that one. If it's going to be Python using Jupyter Notebook, that one. If it's a simple Python project, that one. So here we want our project, so I'll click that. Click Next. Give it a name. For the folder, let's call this example with R, something like that. It doesn't like spaces, I think, so you have to put in underscores. Select where you want the folder to be located. By default, it shows your home directory, but obviously you can put that somewhere else. So if I click Browse here, I'll put it in my Documents folder. So in my Documents folder, when I create this, there'll be a folder now with this name, into which all the relevant files will be stored. I say, if you are using Git, if you know how to use that and you want to create a Git repository to then use GitHub and so on, click that. I won't bother here. Next. Okay, now you choose the particular version of R that you want to use. Now, it may be that you've only got one version, the latest one. I only have a single version. I always keep my version up to date. And of course, when you install a new version of R, it will by default overwrite the existing one. But if you happen to have more than one, you could click here and choose the one you want. In my particular case, I say there's only the current one, which I'm quite happy with. This, I'm not quite sure what this is. Normally with environments, that relates to Python rather than R, so I don't bother clicking that. Click Create. And so the folder has been created within my Documents folder. It says, where would you like to open it? Current window or new window. Obviously, if you were creating this, if you were working within a current project and then you were creating a new one, you'd want to put it in a new window. And you can have several windows open. You can have more than one project open at a time. Or you can put it in the current window. And in my case, since I haven't got a project open, I'll just put it in the current window. And after a few seconds, we're ready to go, as you can see. The Explorer is now showing that particular folder at the moment. The contents, of course, there's nothing in it. There's no data files, there's no code files. I haven't created any. I haven't added any data files yet. Here is my window now, panel, where I can enter my code. Here's the console, where of course the results of the code will be shown, the text results. Here I will see the variables as I create them, and that will look the same as it did in RStudio. And here will be the plot. Now notice that it's now replaced start session here that it said with the version of R that you're currently using. If you had more than one version, then I think you can click in here and choose a different one, but I've never had more than one. I don't think most people would, so that's pretty much redundant now. So from now on, it pretty much works the same as RStudio. You type in your code here, enter it in the usual way with Command Enter on Mac or Control Enter on Windows to enter a single line of code. Any results will be shown down here. Any plots you create will be in here. The variables you create will be in here. So in that sense, it proceeds just the same. So for example, let's say you wanted to do some simple cross-section type analysis. I use an example I've used in my previous videos. So the first thing I want to do is to get my data file in my folder here. Now there's various icons here. This one is to create a new file. That would be if you want to create a new file here, basically a code file. Or you can create a folder, a subfolder. That is just refreshes. What does that one do? Collapse folders, right, if you've got quite a few. So all I want to do here is to add my data file. Now you can do that by copying and pasting or dragging and dropping. So let me bring up a folder here, and I want this particular file here, which I've used many times before. Let me try and drag this. It doesn't seem to want to let me drag. Here we go. So I just drag and drop it in. There we go. You could have used copy and paste. Notice that when you highlight and it's highlighted effectively by default, but when you click on a data file, like a CSV file here, it shows the data in the console window. Let me just, by removing that one, you can see you get a nice spreadsheet view of your data with the each variable in a column and each case in a row. And of course, that's how you should set up your data file. And with the first row being your variable names, it picks all that up. It determines what kind of data it is. Is it categorical? Is it character? Or is it an integer, what it calls a big integer here? Of course, if you'd used, if these were decimals, it would have indicated as a decimal, as a floating variable. You can, in fact, do various things here, I think, with this, like sorting the data by a particular column. I won't go into that here. Most of it's self-explanatory. So let's start entering a bit of code. So let me first of all reading my data. Now notice that when you start doing that, you get some code completion help, and it will also give you some help on the command as well. The keyboard shortcuts from RStudio work just the same. So here I'm just going to press Option Dash, which puts in, of course, I forgot what that's called. It's not equals, is it? It's the thing to put the thing into the assignment operator. Thank you. I knew I could think of it eventually. So let's read in this CSV file. So notice it's coming up with the thing I want. So you just move down to it, press enter. Then you get some help system. I think in Positron, the code completion and the help system as you type code is better than it was in RStudio. It's more comprehensive. So let's put in the name of this file, practice 1.csv. Now remember, of course, if you have your data file within the same folder as your code files, you can simply put the name in, and that's much more convenient. Otherwise, of course, you have to start putting in the path to the file. It's much better to put your data file within the folder, so you can just drag and drop, and then it's much easier to just put the name. Now I need to indicate that it's got a header. Already, of course, so that should do it. So to run this, Command Enter on Mac, Control Enter on Windows. That's read in my data file. I'll just clear the console here, and again, it's the same shortcut as in R, Control L. That. So here's my data. You can have a look at it here. Again, this is just the same as in RStudio. You could click this to show it, but we've already got it, in fact, of course, here. But if I didn't, you could click that, and it would bring up this panel here. Okay, if we want to have a quick look at it on the console, of course, just type in the name. Notice now it's aware of it. Like that, and there it is on the console. If we want to look at the structure, of course, you can do it here, but if you want to have a look at the structure on the console, we have that there. So it's just, obviously there's no difference here between this and RStudio. You're just entering standard R code, getting the results in the console, in just the same way. Let's just show how to do a simple, let's do a simple chart so we can see how that's going to appear here. So I'll create a frequency, a table of the gender variable here using the table command. Again, notice how it's coming up with that, and it gives me some help here if I need it. So data, and when I press the $, of course, it shows me the various variables in there. So that's created that little frequency. There's 9 male and 11 female. And if I want to do a simple bar plot of that, I can just use the bar plot command. Free gender. So if we run that, there's my plot. Obviously, it's very basic at the moment. I could make it, improve it, of course, or I could use ggplot, of course. Obviously, if you want to use other packages which are not available by default, then obviously use the library command as normal. So, as you can see, very easy to use Positron in the same way as you use RStudio. If you prefer, and the advantage is that you can also you do Python analysis using the same package. You don't need 2 separate packages. So it's a nice little app, Positron, which Posit have produced. I think it's the one they see they'll give more attention to going forward. If you're used to using RStudio, it's very easy to also use Positron for analysis. Data analysis using R. Just one final point here. If you want to run, say you load up a pre-existing code file and you want to run it all in one go, then of course you can use the run command here. And if you want to make sure that the results are echoed, appear on the console, then you need to make sure that you choose this source R file with echo command. If you just use source R file, it simply runs the commands. Any plots will appear, but the actual other text results, other output here, doesn't actually appear. You have to make sure you run this one here, source R file with echo. Before you can do that, it asks you to save the file. So, of course, you can easily, don't forget, of course, to save. You can do that here. Save your your code file. Let's call it using R, something like that. Obviously, you'd use something more appropriate for a particular project. Save that. Okay, now we should be able to run this source code with echo. So, sorry, I just clicked it there, which didn't, in fact, as you can see, reproduce the data again. Let me clear this out. You'll see what I mean. So if I just click it, then it is going to do it because it's choosing this first one here. But that's the one you need to do. So you can just click it or just click on down and make sure you use source file with echo so that you do get the results here. Echo equals true, as you can see there. If you don't choose that with echo, you won't see the actual results here. You just get the plots. Notice, once you've had a number of plots, you can cycle through them in the usual way here. Of course, they're all the same plot here. And you can export them and so on, save them, all the usual stuff. So hopefully that gives you an idea, a good introduction to using Positron with R, so that if you want to use Positron rather than RStudio, you should be able to do that very straightforwardly.